2024 was a very difficult year for my indie dev career. So I started the year by working on a handful of things: assets, games, YouTube, and client work. And these are the four main things that I have built my game dev career on. But the thing is, I've always hoped that the work that I do would somehow funnel into becoming just video games. And so for the last four or so years, I was working on a game called Operator 8. Operator 8 released this year with 15,000 wishlists, and it didn't make a lot of money. And that's sort of what prompted me to make this video, is looking back at 2024 and the way that it went for me, and how important it is to diversify your income if you are doing this like myself from home. You are a small-time operator, you don't have, big numbers, you don't have staff, you don't have overhead. It's important to keep it realistic, if I can put it that way. And the thing is, I think indie game development has become easy in terms of the development aspect. Easy is not the right word, but it's become easier. But the financial aspect has become nearly impossible. It is incredibly difficult to be an indie right now. It is harder than I think it's ever been, and I've been doing this for 13 years now. So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit about that, share my thoughts, and just have a discussion about how the year went for me. So like I said, Operator 8 released to perfect feedback, actually. I haven't had a single negative review, and it's now on 30 reviews. But unfortunately, it didn't sell very well. And I'm not sure why this is. I have some plans in the future to get more money out of Operator 8, and I'll discuss that in a couple of months when it happens, and maybe it'll be an inspiration for you if you're in a similar situation, your game didn't do well. There are options. But that's not what this video is about, so let me stick to the topic at hand. I think genres are vital going into 2025. I think it's very important to be realistic with sales expectations and sort of preparing a game in a way that it makes sense financially. Because I made a game that is, the niche for it isn't as big as I think it should be in terms of how many people are interested in it. And I think what happened with me is a lot of people showed vague interest, but very few showed actual interest. And that's the thing about wishlists. It can be very misleading because you would have, let's say you have 10,000 wishlists and you end up getting 200 sales. Let's say that happens to you. And you think to yourself, why has that happened? The probability is that people are interested in seeing what happens with your game, but they're not really interested in buying it. And I think as good as a thing as Nextfest is for indies, I think a lot of the interest that you get from Nextfest is actually very cold interest, if I can put it that way. It's like people are very likely to wishlist games in that period, but I don't think they're interested in buying them necessarily from those demos. But anyway, so it was a hard year for me in terms of game sales. I now have 4 games on Steam that sell and 1 game that is free. And even so, my income from Steam is only about, some days it's $0, some days it's $10, some days it's $50, very few days it's $100. But the thing is, and maybe that doesn't sound too bad to you, if you are like me in a third world country where everything is relatively affordable, it might seem like living off, let's say, $30 a day is doable, and it probably is. But some days I don't even get $30. Majority of the days I get $0. And that is sort of my plan for going forward, is diversifying a lot more. The thing is, you can make games, you can make money with indie games, but you kind of have to get lucky. Your game has to almost blow up, and that doesn't really happen anymore. I mean, there was a time where indie games blew up every now and then. Doesn't really happen anymore. So you have to be very smart with what you make, and that means making shorter games. It means diversifying your income, and it means what you make is extremely important. So let me get into diversification of income and what I am doing to ensure that I make enough to support myself full time to keep doing this, because this is, after all, what I want to keep doing. So let me talk about diversification. As I mentioned, I have 4 ways to make income. I have video game sales on Steam. I have, well, this is in the same bracket, but I have video games key sales on other platforms. And going forward, that will be Greenman Gaming and a few smaller sites. I'm still trying to get onto sites like Good Old Games, but haven't had that luck yet. Maybe one day. So video game sales, both on Steam and away from Steam. Then we have asset creation, and this is a big one for me. So I've been making assets for as long as I've been making games, and I think that you have to have something like this. I'll get more into this in a second. Then I have client work, and this is the big one in terms of how much it earns for me, because this is the one that pays most of my bills at this point, which is actually a very negative thing for me. And then lastly, YouTube. It seems like this channel and my other channel, which is a tech-related channel, will both get monetized in 2025. So in that case, it's not gonna make much for a while, but it will make a small amount of money. And then away from that, there's one last thing that you can do, and that is fundraising, either through Patreon or doing classic fundraising campaigns. But Patreon is sort of like a recurring income sort of thing. Now, obviously, there are other ways to make money, but these are the things that I'm looking at, with the exception of maybe taking a look at tutoring in the next year or so, but that is something that I don't have time for right now. So to reiterate on assets, asset sales are, it's more predictable than game sales. So at this point, I make more money from selling assets than I do selling games. And I think what's happening is more and more people are interested in selling games, and fewer people are actually getting good sales. Because the more product there is, the more demand there has to be. But we're in a place where demand has diminished, because COVID was the reason for the surge in demand, and now that COVID's over, it doesn't it's not translating to sales anymore, and so companies are scaling down. AAA, AA, indie, everyone is scaling down, and people are being fired. And it's for that reason the demand has diminished. And the thing is, you have games like Call of Duty that have like 70% of the market share of an entire genre, and then you have other big ones, your Battlefields, your Valorant, Counter-Strike, everything else. And then, 1% is left, and that has to be shared between 1 million indie developers. So that's sort of the problem with indie development, is there's too many of us. That's just the truth. There's too many indie developers and there's too few gamers. And if a couple of years ago that wasn't the case, but it is now. That's the way I see it, at least. I don't exactly have hard numbers, but that's just how I see it. So all that this means is that you have to be smarter with how you spend your time. And to me, that means making assets. So for assets, I do a variety of things. I'm a 3D artist by trade. That's what I do for my clients. So I do environmental art most of the time. So I like to sell assets that have, environmental art packs, systems. So because I do programming as well. Well, I mean, I make entire games, and you're probably like me, so you can do a bit of everything. Audio packs, which I do with my brother, and just anything you can think of, textures, interfaces, whatever you're good at, make a few packs and make a few bucks. That's sort of my advice, because every little bit helps, and it's a lot easier to get $50 a day from asset packs than what it is to get it from Steam, in my experience at least. And then lastly, the other way that I make money is client work. This pays a lot better than everything else because you have an hourly rate instead of having to reach a number of sales. And at this point, I am a senior in terms of experience. And so, you get to charge your clients a respectable rate if you are lucky enough to find some, because it's also difficult to do because everyone's trying to find clients. And there's only so few clients because these are also just people that want to make games at the end of the day, unless you get into VR or AR or whatever else. So the point that I'm making is it is very difficult to survive as an indie developer in 2024 going into 2025. But if you do these things that I've talked about, I don't think it's impossible. I think it can be done. And you just have to have that determination, that hardiness, and you have to be able to face the fact that it's not going to be easy, and you're most probably not going to get lucky. So the only thing you can do is grind every day, work on everything bit by bit, and just get better over time. That's what I'm trying to do, and I still have a long way to go, but I think I'm going to get there if I am able to just keep it cool, keep going. And of course, avoid burnout. It's important to... Your mental health is important. Your physical health is important. The effects of sitting for 10 hours a day is starting to catch up with me. And so more exercise, more walking, stretching is a big one. And this video has gotten really off topic, but these are just my thoughts. So it's not impossible within the next year. Talk about it. Let me know what you think. Join my Discord. Let me join your Discord. Let's have a conversation. I'm always interested to hear from other indies. And I hope that your indie journey will flourish and blossom and be everything that you need it to be. Not just financially, but also, it's not just money. It's also our lives. And to me, this is the thing that I believe I was meant to do, and so I'll keep doing it, even if it keeps sucking in terms of finances. I'm just going to keep going until I get there, and if I don't get there, I'll die, I guess. So, yeah, let me know what you think. How has your year been? Has it been a good year for you financially? And let's have a chat. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.